They stabbed her in the neck so many times she was practically decapitated. Somehow she survived. When she went to get help, she had to hold her head onto her shoulders to stop it falling off.
Warning, the subject matter that we are discussing in this video contains extremely graphic material and disturbing details that some viewers may find distressing.
Hello true crime fans and welcome to Behind the Yellow Tape. Today we're delving into a truly harrowing case from South Africa, but one that ultimately became an astonishing story of survival and resilience. We're talking about the attempted murder of Alison Botha. The date was the 18th of December 1994 in Port Elizabeth. Alison, only 27 at the time, was driving home when she was ambushed in the car park of her apartment. Our timeline begins in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, in December 1994. Alison was 27 years old. She was an individual with a full life, working as an insurance broker, enjoying the routines of her hometown after some time living overseas. On the evening of the 18th of December, she was performing the most mundane everyday task, driving home and pulling into her apartment building's parking lot. As she stepped out of her car, her reality instantly warped. She was confronted by two men, Frans de Trois and Theuns Kruger. They were complete strangers, their faces unknown, their intentions terrifying. They moved quickly, overpowering her and forcing her back into her vehicle. The sudden, violent invasion of her personal space, the sheer helplessness in that moment is something that defies easy description. The feeling of the ground being ripped out from under you without warning in a place you considered safe. Dutoit and Kruger had planned this. They didn't intend to commit their acts under a street lamp. They drove her away, out of the city lights and out of earshot. Their destination was the surrounding remote countryside, specifically a desolate patch of ground near the university's south campus in the area of Noordhoek. As they drove, Alison, by her own later account, tried to engage them, tried to appeal to their humanity, tried to gather any information she could. She studied their faces, their voices, their conversation. She was performing a form of psychological self-preservation, filing away details even as her fear must have been peaking. This act of conscious observation, of gathering evidence in the middle of a kidnapping, speaks volumes about the clarity she maintained even under extreme duress. When they finally stopped the car and forced her out, the isolation was complete. The night was dark, the air was cold, and she was entirely alone with her two captors in a place designed for complete isolation. What followed was a planned and deliberate escalation of violence. It began with a brutal sexual assault. This violation was quickly followed by what can only be described as an attempt at pure physical annihilation. They were determined to ensure she would not survive. The men started stabbing her. They didn't stab her once or twice. This was a sustained, frenzied attack meant to destroy her body entirely. The focus of the attack was her abdomen. Multiple sources and forensic reports confirm she was stabbed an estimated 37 times in her stomach. The violence was so extreme, the wound so deep that she was disemboweled. Her internal organs protruded from the wounds. The extent of this trauma alone should have been instantly fatal due to blood loss and shock, but de Trois and Kruger, driven by the need to eliminate the witness, continued their assault. They then turned their attention to her neck. They took a knife and began a systematic attempt to decapitate her. Her throat was slashed repeatedly up to 16 times, according to some reports, severing major arteries, the windpipe and most of the connective tissue. They were trying to completely detach her head from her body. Finally, they left. They abandoned her, bleeding, mutilated and motionless in the field. They drove away, secure in the belief that the witness was dead and their crime was untraceable. And this is the moment in the story that defies all medical and psychological expectations. Lying in the cold, dark field with her body destroyed, Alison Botha made a conscious, active choice. She was dying, yes, but she refused to be defeated. She later described the thought that propelled her, the image of her beloved mother finding her body in that remote, dark place. That thought, that pure love and commitment, became her engine of survival. She knew she had to live, if only long enough to tell the authorities who had done this. Her survival required an act of self-care that is almost too painful to imagine. Her head was barely connected to her shoulders. She had to use one hand, the one that still had enough strength to press down on her neck to stop her head falling off. With her other hand, she performed an impromptu surgery on herself. She pushed her exposed abdominal organs back into the massive wound and held them there, applying pressure to stop the catastrophic bleeding. And then the movement began. With her head held in one hand and her intestines held in the other, she began to crawl. She dragged her broken, bleeding body across the rough, thorny terrain. This was not a passive slide. This was a powerful, monumental effort of will over flesh. Every inch was excruciating, a battle against pain, shock, and the overwhelming urge to simply succumb to death. She crawled until she reached a faint glimmer of civilization, the nearby road, and there, against all odds, she was found. A passing motorist who must have been instantly plunged into a state of shock at the sight of her stopped. That act of humanity, of immediate intervention, was the final crucial step in saving her life. The motorist rushed her to the nearest hospital. At the hospital, the medical team were faced with a challenge few had ever encountered. A young woman with dozens of stab wounds, massive blood loss, disemboweled and nearly decapitated. She required complex, multi-hour life-saving surgeries. Her survival was not just unlikely, it was, according to the doctors, a miracle. A testament to her profound will to live that kept her heart beating. Crucially, throughout the entire ordeal, even while on the operating table and during her initial recovery, Alison maintained a terrifying clarity. She was able to recount details of the men's faces, their conversation, and the crime itself. Franz Dutoit and Theon's Kruger were quickly apprehended, identified by the very witness they had so brutally tried to silence. They subsequently confessed to the assault and attempted murder. The trial was swift and generated intense public interest. In 1995, both men were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. The presiding judge, Chris Jansen, went beyond the sentence. He publicly denounced the two men as being inherently evil and strongly recommended that they never be considered for parole. This statement was a direct judicial acknowledgement of the unique and profound evil of their crime. For Alison, the legal victory was only the foundation of her true triumph. She was left with massive physical scars and deep psychological wounds, but she refused to let her identity be defined by the actions of her attackers. She became a global figure of inspiration. She transformed her trauma into a message of hope, resilience, and courage. She became a prolific motivational speaker, traveling extensively, particularly to speak to women, urging them to find their own inner strength, to refuse victimhood, and to actively choose life. Her memoir, I Have a Life, and the award-winning documentary film Alison cemented her status as a beacon of human endurance. She demonstrated that survival is not just about the body, it's about owning your narrative. The stability of the sentence was shattered in July 2023. After serving 28 years, Dutoit and Kruger were granted parole. The decision sent shockwaves through the country. The public outcry was immense, but the most egregious offence was the failure of the Correctional Services Department to properly inform or consult Alison, the survivor. A violation of her statutory rights and an act that re-traumatised her. The parole was seen as a grave injustice, ignoring the specific recommendation of the trial judge and the ongoing danger the two men posed. But the true legacy of the Alison Botha case is not the attackers, but Alison herself. She refused to be a victim. She wrote a book, I Have a Life, and became a powerful motivational speaker, using her experience to inspire countless others about the strength of the human spirit. Her story is a testament to extraordinary courage in the face of unmanageable trauma. turning her survival into a global symbol of hope and empowerment. Thank you for listening today, and remember, stay behind the yellow tape. This legal and public pressure forced a critical review by the Ministry of Correctional Services. The review confirmed the procedural failures and raised serious questions about the risk assessment of the offenders. In a landmark decision in February 2025, the parole of both Franz de Troyes and Theuns Kruger was officially revoked. They were subsequently reincarcerated, returning them to where they belong, prison. This reversal provided a necessary, though painful, confirmation that the justice system must prioritise the safety of the public and the dignity of the victim. Alison Botha's journey is a demanding, difficult, but ultimately profoundly moving story. It is the ultimate proof that the most powerful weapon a human being possesses is the will to live. Thank you for listening today, and remember, stay behind the yellow tape.